Julius Malema has become irrelevant, and he knows it. He's trying to remaster himself, but he has been totally slaughtered politically by MK. And now, one by one, people are leaving and droving off from him. So he will soon be what? And to add a pathetic caveat, the president says, but no, I'll sign the bill, and then there are 2 points within the bill that I am still open to discuss it with you. That's like going deer hunting, shooting the deer, and saying, just before I chop his head off to put onto my wall, is there anybody that would like to say something in the prayer of the fallen deer? This is rubbish. You've shot it.
Still on former President Jacob Zuma, I see his son Duduzane Zuma seems to be back in the fold, probably brought there by Floyd Shivambu, who greeted him very warmly at Nakanta recently. Well, that, Neil, I think would be cause for concern for economic freedom fighters, Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, if Duduzane focuses on the universities where the EFF has such a stronghold. What do you think?
Well, I think the only thing that guy who calls himself Commander-in-Chief commands is a toaster or a kettle, the browning of a bread and the quality of heating up water. He's become irrelevant. There's no doubt. Julius Malema has become irrelevant, and he knows it. He's trying to remaster himself, but he has been totally slaughtered politically by MK. And now, one by one, people are leaving and droving off from him. So he will soon be what? Commander of one chief. What is clear and shocking is that more and more, Chris, we see MK becoming a one-family affair. The latest visit and speech of Jacob Zuma this weekend at the memorial service of those MK members that died in the terrible car crash. He was there. He is suddenly taking stage. Now, this is a man in March who started his own party, Duduzane, who said that he is not going to join his dad's party and that he would like to chip away on his life on his own. That did not work. He was removed from the political IEC list. He did not contest. And suddenly, I think that the attraction, the formation of greed, the publicity is getting to him. And I am telling you today, do not be surprised for an announcement in the very next few weeks that he will be replacing another member of parliament and will be taking up that seat. I think it's coming, and we need to look at that very clearly.
Neil, earlier you told me that you'd like us to introduce a hero of the week and a flop of the week without telling me who you have picked. Shall we start with the flop of the week then?
Oh, absolutely. Cyril Ramaphosa. What an absolute flop this week to come in and forcibly sign the BELA Bill. Now, everybody is wondering, why is there such an uprise against the BELA Bill? There are definitely people that are pushing it through. And at that circus of the signing ceremony, the one that was more happy than the president was Lesufi, because Lesufi was one of the scribes of the BELA Bill. Now, when they signed it, they knew that most of the people in the GNU are against it, and in actual fact, as you said, was the so-called red line for certain people when they joined the GNU. That red line has now gone green. And to add a pathetic caveat, the president says, but no, I'll sign the bill, and then there are 2 points within the bill that I am still open to discuss it with you. That's like going deer hunting, shooting the deer, and saying, just before I chop his head off to put onto my wall, is there anybody that would like to say something in the prayer of the fallen deer? This is rubbish. You've shot it. So, plain and simple, he goes and signs this thing. I don't even know if he understands it, but the massive impact that the BELA Bill has on 3 things, just 3 things. This is critical. 1, the right and the custodianship of the people that are the school governing bodies, which are mostly parents, are absolutely impeached. Secondly, the right to understand that your language of choice in your mother tongue is now under threat. And thirdly, we have to understand that the right to school your child, I'm just hyperphrasing here, there are many other points, of actually homeschooling will also now be put under state governance. Now, plain and simple, Chris, the right of the education of my children, I'm a dad and a granddad, should at the end of the day ultimately rest with me. The choice, the understanding, and the selection of educational levels of my children should be my right as a parent. The BELA Bill, no matter how you try and frame it, is against it. And that is why there was an uproar from civil society. So signing this bill, knowing that your GNU partners are against it, and they are, it's not like they're running away. In my opinion, they just surrendered. They just said to themselves, well, here we go again. No matter what we say, the ANC is going to get what they want. And that is not a GNU. That is an absurd strategy of just going on with the old and the new just going for the right.
Yeah, really interesting thoughts by Neil de Beer. It's really quite interesting what's going on with the EFF at the moment. And Julius Malema was actually in an interview recently with Clement Mayatela and really discussing about, the future of the EFF and, the whole push for expropriation, the EFF policy on foreigners and all that. And the EFF president, Julius Malema, is still really clear. Appears really still boisterous in the plans for the EFF in all of its policies and despite the loss of Floyd Shivambu to the MK party, he appeared really quite strong. And so it's really interesting how it would come to be, as especially Neil de Beer argues that Julius Malema has become irrelevant to South African politics. It's really interesting to see how the EFF would come back and how that would also play in the whole government of national unity and the kind of like opposition politics that is actually being wielded now from the perspective of the MK. But the MK is making more inroads now into the government, really boisterous with its changes. Neil de Beer here spoke about, the entrance of Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma, and it's almost slowly becoming, according to like what Neil de Beer argues, that MK party is slowly almost becoming like a family kind of like arrangement, so to speak. And so it's also really interesting to watch the kind of politics that the Zuma faction would be throwing out in the coming days, especially now we know that GNU has still 5 years to go. It's really interesting the kind of politics we might be seeing. But also the one thing that strikes me about this interview with Neil de Beer is the case of the BELA Bill. It's still really going strong. I think even AfriForum has taken up the case and, are really preparing their lawyers for court as this 3 months waiting period elapses, and it's a period that President Ramaphosa has promised that the government will wait for some clauses in the BELA Bill to be signed, after which the bill will be fully signed into law. And so AfriForum and some other civil societies are really preparing to challenge this bill to court. And all of this puts really the Minister of Basic Education, who's a DA minister, Siviwe Gwarube, in a really tight position. And that's, for me, what I feel unfortunate, because of her party affiliation to the DA, which opposed this bill, she also has to kind of like react in a way that's in line with her party. And so she boycotted the signing event on that day, which really makes a lot of people think that the GNU has failed, that the GNU is really in an unfortunate position if one of its basic ministers, will not be able to attend a ceremony that is so crucial to the nation. So especially like Julius Malema really believes in this interview with Clement, he believed that the EFF, because of this act by Siviwe Gwarube, the GNU actually has lost its legitimacy, so to speak. But anyway, I think we'll just go through the analysis from some really interesting news, especially from this from Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi. Many AfriForum activists actually think that this bill is actually being, spearheaded by both President Ramaphosa and this Gauteng Premier, Panyaza Lesufi, because he's really been pushing, to have this bill. And this is how the news reports them, you see. So even from EWN News, it speaks about from the perspective of Lesufi and Guarube, arguing that, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has actually urged Basic Minister Siviwe Guarube not to bring politics to her office when it comes to implementing the newly signed bill. So you see, it appears that Panyaza Lesufi is actually really being boisterous. He's kind of like representing the force behind this BELA Bill. And many people have actually argued that the BELA Bill seeks to have this whole inclusivity in education. And so although the AfriForum lawyer was listening to yesterday, actually spoke about how this bill might be an attack on Afrikaans education and Afrikaners actually, and I'll be making a video about that. Really interesting thoughts. But anyway, it says that Guarube, Siviwe Guarube, who is Minister of Basic Education from the DA party, she actually boycotted Friday's signing ceremony of the BELA Bill, which was an act that broke a long-standing tradition of ministers who attend the event when their portfolio will be affected by a new law. So in South Africa, whenever a minister, whenever a new bill will be passed, or a ceremony around a new bill that will be passed that will affect their education, that minister must be present in that ceremony. So this was a really grand, kind of like putting her feet on the ground and saying no. And so her absence at that ceremony was largely felt. It was like a vacuum, and so it says also that in a press statement released on I think this is last Friday, Guarube actually said that she opposed the language policy and making grades compulsory, which is part of the new bill. And that was really two parts of the bill that she really didn't agree with. But anyway, it says that Guarube's duties on that day was actually taken over by her deputy, which was Regina Haule. And also in attendance to this ceremony was also the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi, who actually said that all members of the National Executive now had a duty to ensure that the BELA Bill policy was implemented. According to Lesufi, he's actually now speaking. He says that he indicated according to, I think this is kind of like Panyaza's speech anyway. He says, we indicated she must not bring politics into the sector because that will be a very dangerous game. Just imagine if I urge my MEC of education not to interact with her or other MECs not to interact with her. I really believe that with that 3-month period, she will review her boycott of this particular process, but she has a responsibility to implement it. So this is the perspective from Panyaza Lesufi, who is actually not happy that she boycotted that event, and she shouldn't really bring in because it will really be dangerous. And Panyaza Lesufi has proven to be really kind of like he really puts his feet down as well in what he thinks should be right or wrong. I remember the hard time he gave the DA, at the inception of the swearing in ceremony during the period when he had a heated debate with Helen Zille, and that came into a really big media issue where I think the DA and the ANC couldn't work well with in the Gauteng province, and I think the DA even had to leave the the local provincial leadership in Gauteng. So Panyaza Lesufi actually, I think he has some serious plans regarding the implementation of this bill and all. But anyway, it says that President Ramaphosa said that he would delay the implementation of the schools admission and language policies, which are parts of this BELA Bill, for 3 months to allow a spirit of engagement proceed. in light of the fact that many members of the government of national unity, rejected this bill and, to try to avoid an authoritarian perspective to this. Lesufi also speaking, he's saying that there is nothing new that will be presented on the table as 8 of 9 provinces approved this bill. The bill went through public participation and this bill went through parliament. This bill allowed members of the parliament to vote as they voted. And if there are some people who want to express a view, we thank the president for giving them the opportunity. But the bill is signed. The bill is law. It is no longer a bill. It is an act of parliament that must be adhered to. So this is according to Lesufi, Panyaza Lesufi. He's still really pushing hard that this bill, it's already there. It's kind of like it's a law already, and so this is kind of like a cryptic message to those who actually are not happy with this bill to try to reconsider and accept and start to really see it as reality. But anyway, we know that, the DA says that it will continue with its legal action to challenge the Basic Education Laws Amendment, the BELA Bill, irrespective of this 3 months engagement period by President Ramaphosa. And also, while signing the bill, it said that President Ramaphosa actually said that he will give an opportunity to those who have concerns regarding Clause 4 and Clause 5 of the BELA Bill to ensure that the government can come up with an acceptable alternative. These clauses, Clause 4 and 5 now, they actually relate to the rights and responsibilities of school governing bodies, including language policy and admissions. So school governing bodies used to have power to determine how language policies and, admissions would go down in the public schools, okay? But now this bill would actually take that power from them and transfer that power, I think, to the provincial head, so to speak, in the provinces, and the school governing bodies would have less power to determine how language policies, how admissions and all that will go down in public schools and all that. So that national DA spokesperson Willie Ocamp actually says that the issue is not being handled in the right way in good faith. He says that the fact that President Ramaphosa said that should we not be able to get consensus after the 3-month bill, the bill will be implemented. And he argues that that's not something done in good faith, and it does not reflect what President Ramaphosa said in the statement of intent which the ANC gave to the different members of the government of national unity today when they signed to be part of the government. He says that when the government of national unity was formed, the statement of intent made provision for sufficient consensus that must be reached between all parties, and that if the government is going to sign this BELA Bill, which appears to now be something that he's arguing is being signed unilaterally from the perspective of just one person, which is the president, and not according to consensus, he argues that it means that the president would have disregarded the sufficient consensus clause of the statement of intent and now has violated the statement of intent, which pulled these multiple parties together to become a part of the government of national unity. So that's the perspective of the DA regarding what they think is an abuse of power by President Cyril Ramaphosa. So I think I'll also be making another video on this, but there's another really interesting series of thoughts by the chairperson of the Trust for Afrikaans Education. Okay, his name is Theons Olof, and he actually argues that President Ramaphosa has actually agreed. He agrees that President Ramaphosa has actually agreed to delay the implementation of Clause 4 and 5 for 3 months to allow for further consultation. But then Theons Olof is actually criticizing the BELA Bill as a scapegoat, okay, for the government's shortcomings. And he highlights these issues. This is now especially from the perspective of Biz News. Theons Olof is actually highlighting the real issue lies in the lack of the newly built schools to meet the needs of the growing population in Gauteng, okay? And probably this is, from his perspective, this is why Panyaza Lesufi is pushing for the BELA Bill. He's actually arguing, let's go through that again because that's a really interesting point. He says Olof criticized the BELA Bill as a scapegoat for the government's shortcomings, highlighting that the real issues lie in the lack of newly built schools to meet the needs of a growing population in Gauteng. Okay, he says that he noted that Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi promised to construct 40 schools during his first term, but only 4 have been completed. Now, Elof is also expressing discontent with the Gauteng Education Department approach, which has involved sending officials to schools to measure up classrooms and instructing principals to increase the enrollment of non-Afrikaans speakers in public schools in the Gauteng province. And he's now arguing that the failure to reach an agreement, especially for the BELA Bill, would result in a really prolonged battle. So everybody's getting their guns ready. All of the, I think the representatives of Afrikaans education, and Afrikaans community generally are really getting their guns ready, legal teams ready and all that, to get ready for a prolonged legal battle to contest this law, to contest the BELA Bill, and, potentially see that probably it's taken down. And I think that would be a really tough one to chew by the ANC government and all that. So that's where we are on the BELA Bill and where the BELA Bill is going at the moment. It's quite a disturbing one, though, for the government of national unity. And while some see it as an inclusive policy, some see it as a scapegoat, as an attack, especially from the perspective of the Afrikaans and Afrikaans public education system in South Africa. But anyway, what do you guys think about the BELA Bill, about Julius Malema, about Nel Debe's speech here in this video? Share your thoughts. Let's all think together in the comments.